I spent the first 40 years of my life becoming someone. And you know what I discovered? That person didn't exist. Never did. I was building a statue out of smoke, trying to capture wind in my hands, chasing a ghost I thought was me. And the moment I hit 40, the whole thing collapsed. Not in a bad way. In the most liberating, terrifying, beautiful way possible. See, they don't tell you this when you're young. They don't tell you that everything you're doing in your 20s and 30s, all that ambition and striving and becoming, it's not the main event. It's the opening act. It's the warm-up band before the real concert begins. You're not living your life yet. You're rehearsing it. You're auditioning for a role that you'll eventually realize you never wanted in the first place. Your 20s are about proving yourself. To your parents, to your peers, to the world, to yourself. You're like a peacock desperately trying to show everyone how beautiful your feathers are. Look at me. Look at what I can do. Look at what I've achieved. Look at who I'm becoming. And underneath all that proving is a question you're terrified to ask. Am I enough? Am I valuable? Do I deserve to exist? I remember my 20s. I was hungry, desperate, clawing my way up from nothing, doing stand-up in clubs where people threw bottles at me, sleeping in my car, living on dreams and delusion. And I thought, once I make it, once I'm famous, once people recognize me, once I have money and success and validation, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be complete. Then my real life will begin. Your 30s are about building. You've proven yourself, or you're still trying to, and now you're constructing this elaborate life. Career, relationship, house, maybe kids, reputation, image, status. You're stacking bricks, building walls, creating this fortress of identity. This is who I am. This is what I've accomplished. This is my place in the world. And you defend it fiercely because you've invested everything into it. Your time, your energy, your soul. This structure becomes you. Or so you think. I spent my 30s at the absolute peak of fame, movies making hundreds of millions of dollars, my face everywhere, my name on everyone's lips. I built this massive monument to Jim Carrey, and I thought, this is it. I made it. This is the dream. But here's what they don't tell you about dreams. Sometimes you have to wake up from them to actually start living. Then, 40 hits. And if you're paying attention, if you're not completely numb, if you haven't successfully anesthetized yourself with success or failure or whatever drug you're using to avoid reality, 40 is when the questions start. Real questions, not how do I get what I want, but why did I want it in the first place? Not how do I become successful, but what is success? Not who should I be, but who am I, really? 40 is when the cracks start showing, in the facade you've built, in the story you've been telling, in the person you've been pretending to be. And those cracks, they're not weaknesses. They're where the light gets in. They're where truth starts to seep through. They're where your real life is waiting to be born. Because here's what happens around 40. You start running out of future. I know that sounds dark, but stay with me. When you're 20, the future is infinite. You have decades to become who you're supposed to be, to achieve what you're supposed to achieve, to fix what's broken, to get it right. The horizon is endless. But at 40, you look up and realize, I'm halfway there, maybe more than halfway. The math is getting uncomfortable. And suddenly, all that someday energy has to become now energy. And this does something to you. It burns away the bullshit. It forces you to get honest, because you can't waste another 20 years pretending anymore. You can't spend another 2 decades chasing someone else's definition of success. You can't give another chunk of your life to pleasing people who don't even know you. The fire of mortality starts burning away everything that isn't essential, everything that isn't real, everything that isn't you. This is when life actually begins. Not when you graduate, not when you get married, not when you have kids or buy a house or get promoted or any of those milestones they told you would make you feel complete. Life begins when you stop trying to become someone and start discovering who you already are. At 40, you've collected enough evidence, you've tried enough things, you've succeeded enough and failed enough to know that neither success nor failure is what you thought it was. You've been praised and criticized and ignored, and you've discovered that none of it actually touches who you really are. You've built and lost and built again, and somewhere in that process, you realize that what you build isn't you. What you achieve isn't you. What people think of you isn't you. So who are you? That's the question that makes life begin. And you can't answer it at 20 because you don't have enough experience yet. You can't answer it at 30 because you're too busy trying to prove the answer. But at 40, You've lived enough to know that all your answers were wrong. And in that beautiful, terrifying admission, in that surrender of knowing, something real can finally emerge. As we move to what I believe is the most beautiful part of this conversation, I must also invite you to join us, as I would rather this not be our last conversation. I hit 40 and everything I thought mattered stopped mattering, not in a nihilistic way, in a liberated way. The awards, the box office numbers, the magazine covers, the public image, all of it just fell away. And what was left was this question: if none of that is me, then what am I? And the answer I found wasn't something I could put on a resume. It wasn't something I could show people. It was just presence, just awareness, just this being that's been here all along, watching the whole circus, waiting for me to stop performing long enough to notice it. Life begins at 40 because that's when you finally get tired enough of your own shit to let it go. You've been carrying this enormous backpack full of other people's expectations, childhood wounds, societal programming, fear, ambition, shame, and somewhere around 40, your back just gives out. You can't carry it anymore. You don't want to carry it anymore. And in the letting go, in the collapse, you discover you can breathe for the first time in your life. The second half of life is not about addition. It's about subtraction. It's not about becoming more. It's about becoming less. Less pretense, less performance, less caring what people think. Less trying to be someone you're not. Less of everything that isn't essential until what remains is just the truth of you. Raw, unfiltered, real. And here's the beautiful irony: the moment you stop trying to be impressive, you become interesting. The moment you stop trying to be successful, you become effective. The moment you stop trying to be loved, you become loving. Everything you were chasing by trying to become someone, you find by accepting who you are. At 40, you start to understand that you're not here to live up to anyone's expectations. Not your parents, not society's, not even your own. You're here to express something that's uniquely you, something that's never been expressed before and will never be expressed again. You're not a copy. You're not a version. You're an original. And the first 40 years were just you trying on everyone else's clothes until you finally realized none of them fit. People fear 40 because they think it means decline. The body starts breaking down. The face starts showing wear. The energy starts diminishing. And yeah, all of that happens. But what they don't see is what's growing while the body is aging. Wisdom is growing. Clarity is growing. Freedom is growing. The soul is finally getting room to breathe because the ego is starting to loosen its grip. The first half of life is ego building. You need a strong ego to survive, to compete, to achieve, to make your mark. But if that's all you ever do, if you just keep building that ego until you die, you miss the whole point. The second half of life is ego, dissolution. It's the conscious dismantling of everything you thought you were so you can discover what you actually are. And this isn't sad, this isn't loss, this is liberation. Every piece of false identity you let go of, you get lighter. Every expectation you release, you get freer. Every mask you take off, you get realer. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself for the first time. I look at people in their 20s and 30s now, and I see them running the same race I ran, chasing the same illusions, building the same prisons. And I have compassion for it because you can't skip steps. You have to build the ego before you can dissolve it. You have to become someone before you can realize there's no one to become. You have to climb the mountain before you can discover there was nothing at the top. But man, if I could tell them anything, if I could save them some suffering, I'd say this: everything you're chasing, you already have. Everything you're trying to become, you already are. Everything you think will complete you won't. And the sooner you discover that, the sooner your real life can begin. Because life doesn't begin when you get what you want. Life begins when you stop wanting, when you stop needing to be anywhere other than where you are, when you stop needing to be anyone other than who you are. When you finally relax into the moment and realize, this is it. This is the life. Right here, right now. Not someday, not when you achieve something, not when you become someone. Now. At 40, you start to see that time is not your enemy, it's your teacher. Every wrinkle is a lesson. Every gray hair is wisdom. Every failure is redirection. Every loss is liberation. The years aren't taking anything from you. They're revealing you. They're stripping away the unnecessary until only the essential remains. And what's essential? Not the job title, not the bank account, not the relationship status, not the image. What's essential is the ability to be present, to love, to create, to connect, to experience this wild, beautiful, temporary miracle of being alive. That's what remains when everything else is stripped away. That's what you discover in the second half of life. The younger version of me thought life was about achievement. The current version knows life is about awareness. The younger version wanted to be someone. The current version is content being no one. The younger version was terrified of death. The current version understands that you have to die many times while you're alive to truly live. Every decade after 40 is another death and rebirth, another layer shed, another truth revealed, another liberation. You're not declining, you're refining, you're not ending, you're beginning. Over and over again, each time more honest, more real, more you. The greatest lie we're told is that youth is when you're alive and aging is when you're dying. The truth is the opposite. Youth is when you're dying to yourself, betraying yourself, abandoning yourself to become what others want. And aging, real aging, conscious aging is when you finally come alive, when you finally come home to yourself. So when someone says life begins at 40, they're not talking about some arbitrary milestone. They're talking about the moment you stop living everyone else's life and start living yours. The moment you stop performing and start being. The moment you stop becoming and start existing. The moment you wake up from the dream of who you should be and embrace the reality of who you are. And if you're not 40 yet, don't wait. Don't spend decades building a life you'll have to deconstruct later. Start now. Question everything. Challenge every should. Examine every belief. Ask yourself constantly, is this really me? Or is this what I've been programmed to think is me? Am I living my life? Or am I living a life that was designed for me by people who don't even know me? And if you're past 40 and you feel like you've wasted time, like you've missed something, like it's too late, let me tell you, it's never too late. Life begins the moment you decide it begins. The moment you stop waiting for permission. The moment you stop believing the story that you're broken or behind or not enough. Life begins when you say, I'm here, I'm alive, and that's enough. Because it is enough. You are enough, you always have been. And the rest of your life, however long that is, can be spent discovering just how magnificent that enough really is. That's why life begins at 40. Not because 40 is magic, but because 40 is when you're finally tired enough of the bullshit to choose truth, brave enough to let go, wise enough to know what matters, and free enough to finally be yourself. And that, my friend, is when everything real begins.